having a great opportunity to chat further. A few things, of course, you know, it is almost Christmas time. So I wanted to make sure we did a few things, recognize the hard work of Santa, who is going around this year, and also Casey Parks. Make sure you go to our Winter Magic in Swope Park. And in addition, there's a group of unsung heroes, and I'm wearing them today. That's our Solid Waste Services Division. There are a lot of folks that are working hard through the pandemic, no more than them. Our trash and recycling, as you might expect, with so many people home, is going through the roof this year. So we've done a lot more work to make sure that they are getting their recognition. I was able to snag this neat sweatshirt, but if you see your trash or recycling crews in the Solid Waste Division, be sure to tell them thank you. So I'm going to lose probably the Santa hat for a minute, and then maybe my Parks mask, although make sure you keep wearing your masks throughout time. So there we go. All right. So let's fire away with today's questions. As always, you can leave more questions in the comments, and that will be the best way for us to do things. So feel free to do all of that. A brief weekend review for us here in Kansas City. One, I had the chance to be appointed as, and by the way, I'm a little hot, right? It's like 45 degrees outside. So apologies for seeming warmer than usual. A few things happened. So I was appointed the vice chair for transit of the United States Conference of Mayors in their Transportation and Communications Committee. What does that mean? What that means is that we'll be able to help Kansas City become a leader in all types of transit. You've heard about our efforts with zero fare transit, the bus system. I've also heard loud and clear from a lot of you who live both in the Northland, in South Kansas City, and in parts of East Kansas City, who say, well, it's all well and good to have zero fare transit on the heavier traveled routes, but what about making sure we still have routes in our part of the community? So we'll continue to do a lot of work in connection with that, and I think this is one way that we can really lead on that. Of course, in our next Congress and with our next president, there will be lots of questions about the infrastructure bill, all types of resources, so we will continue to make sure that we're doing work there. I also wanted to note that this week we talked about extending an eviction moratorium for renters in Kansas City. This is something that actually isn't just Kansas City coming up with it. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta, part of the current presidential administration, issued an eviction moratorium some months ago. That is set to expire soon, but we want to make sure that that's followed in Jackson County, Platte County, Clay County, etc. And so we're making sure we're doing outreach there because this is a time when lots of people are finding themselves in tough economic challenges. We want to make sure that we're part of making things easier for everyone as time goes on. So that is another really cool area and an interesting area we're working on. And in addition to that, we have a few other, I think, fairly important items that we're able to pass. We passed what we've called a humane wage, living wage provision that allows the minimum wage for companies that do business with Kansas City, and a majority of their businesses with Kansas City, to pay their workers $15 an hour. Time and again, we've heard from workers, particularly today, who are saying that some amount less isn't enough to make ends meet. And we thought that those people that clean out dog kennels at the KC Pet Project, who are doing important work with city contractors, also deserve the same pay and dignity that we've seen from other workers. And so that's an important part of what we're trying to do today. We've passed, for those of you in the business community, and actually for all of you, because we all care, we passed and pardon me, Diet Coke keeps me strong. And that's not an ad, by the way. We passed an ordinance relating to fee waivers for businesses. We know that we can't get every business all of the money that it could possibly need long term, but we do recognize that we can do what we can to help people have a reduction of the fees that they pay to the city each year. A few weeks ago, I had the chance to visit with a baker who said the $400 that I may pay Kansas City on a certain fee is the difference between me being able to make a light bill this month versus not. There are a lot of people that are struggling right now, and we know it's very important, and so we're going to make sure that we continue to do that vital work. We've also continued on our budget discussions in Kansas City, as you probably know. In mid-February, under the city charter, we're required to have a city budget, and we will make sure that we do that for you as well. So, a few different things that I was saying, and we will start with our questions. So first on COVID and economy. This week, by the way, I wanted to give you a few updates broadly on COVID-19, and then we'll do a few more questions. And by the way, no, this is not a Santa do-rag. It's just not the best Santa costume. And by the way, come on, y'all, look at this hair. Do you think I actually wear a do-rag anymore? I mean, I last had a chance of waves back in 1997. So anyway, let's go with a little update on all things COVID. Vaccinations have begun across our bi-state region. We are very excited to have seen our first vaccinations at the Truman Medical Centers here in Kansas City, and we continue to see that at other hospital facilities and for certain health workers in Missouri and Kansas. That's going to be important. We've also seen nationally that the Moderna vaccine joins the Pfizer vaccine. Moderna was authorized for emergency use just yesterday and is en route to Kansas City. This is reason for hope, but as you all know, we have to continue to stay vigilant about our efforts to socially distance, to wear our masks. You may wonder, how many KC-related masks do I have on my desk? There are tons. By the way, I'd like to thank the folks from Scion who sent me one the other day too. Thank you, and so we'll make sure we'll have all of these. Thanks to our joint efforts and the work of all of you, our case numbers and hospitalizations, I am so proud to say, and thank you to Kansas City, our hospitalizations and case numbers have declined over the past 14 days. In Kansas City, Missouri, our case numbers are down 14%. Again, that's 14%. How amazing is that? In Jackson County, Missouri, we see case numbers down by 12%. In Clay and Platte counties, their case numbers have decreased by in excess of 20%. So both in Kansas City, Missouri itself, and in the county jurisdictions that sit in all their health departments or the areas of their counties that aren't within Kansas City, Missouri, we've seen case numbers decrease. This is a result of some fairly tough medicine that we've all had to make. But we all know that it's made a difference in our community. I want to say thank you to Kansas City. We are so proud of you. Keep up the good work, particularly as we enter the holiday season. So while Kansas City's case numbers are down in Kansas City, Missouri by 14%, we see the trend is not the same in the Kansas City metro area, which includes Missouri and Kansas area counties. In the Kansas City metro, it's up 13%. That includes a somewhat significant increase in Johnson and Wyandotte counties. In Missouri statewide, we've seen an increase of 1%. And across the country, we've seen an increase of 18%. People ask, when are we going to pull back some of these protections? Well, it's important right now that we keep people safe. This decrease in 14% we've seen in Kansas City, Missouri, means that fewer people are going to get sick, fewer people are going to die. And I know there are people that will probably enter into the comments now and say all types of things, like, for example, oh, a lot of people recover. But what I've said time and again in these moments, these broadcasts, is the thing that I will say again with all of you. I don't want to make that choice for somebody's mother, somebody's father, somebody's brother, somebody's friend. We're going to do what we can to keep people safe. We don't have any medicine that exceeds that which is necessary to treat the problem that we have. But right now, our problem is a significant one. If you watched Kansas City Council this week, you would see that our case numbers, particularly among a high incidence group, those in their 20s, those in their 30s, has decreased dramatically. I'm proud of them. I'm proud of all of you. We'll keep fighting the good fight. Case numbers down by 14% in Kansas City, while at the same time they're up by 13% in the Kansas City metropolitan area, up by 1% in Missouri, and up by 18% in the United States. Shows we've been doing something right. Let's keep up the good work, particularly through the Christmas holiday. And then we'll get to all the questions. You guys are already firing with a bunch of good stuff. From Ty, he says, has there been any directive from the Biden team where cities and states can ask for funding to fill budget deficits due to COVID? Or is this something Congress will handle before the administration changes? Well, our hope is that this is actually something that Congress handles before the administration changes. We continue to work diligently with our federal representatives, Senators Blunt and Hawley, as well as our United States congresspersons who represent parts of Kansas City, Emmanuel Cleaver, former mayor who sat in this office, Congressman Sam Graves, and Congresswoman Vicki Hartzler. We also talk to our representatives and friends over on the Kansas side. We think it is imperative that we get relief, and relief that comes directly to America's cities. I know there's been a lot of questions about, well, why do the cities need relief as distinct from, let's say, any other group that could receive? Well, the relief that cities get helps us have more testing in Kansas City. It will eventually help us have more vaccines. It'll help us protect our frontline workers, our first responders, our firefighters and police who are interacting with populations at risk. And it'll help us protect all of you. That's why, to me, this is not a partisan issue. This is an issue about how we keep people healthy and safe, how we keep businesses solvent, and how we save lives. We'll continue to do that important work for all of you. Pardon me. I'll also note that we're very optimistic that something will pass before Christmas. I know that just yesterday, Congress passed a 2-day continuing resolution so that basically they could stay in business with their budget, so they can continue negotiating up to the Christmas holiday. I hope we'll get it done before. A few other things. We've been advocating for another package strongly since last summer. We also have to make sure we say it looks like the state and local aid may not be included, which would be a problem for our city. We'll continue to fight for that, and we'll make it clear to folks that this is a very big deal for Kansas City. Another thing that we're going to make sure we do is that we say thank you where thank yous are due. One of those thank yous goes to our United States Senator, our junior Senator, Josh Hawley, who along with Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont has been trying to get direct checks to every family in America. That's something I support. That's something I stand for. That was held up the other day by Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. I hope we have the chance to see Senator Hawley and Senator Sanders' legislation, modification on the current legislation, get through. All right, a few questions now on public safety and police reform. Earlier in the year, there were community initiatives on crime. What has come out of those discussions? Please provide an update. You're absolutely right that we had a number of community conversations as it relates to crime. That included the Public Safety Partnership, which led to a partnership between the mayor's office, the Kansas City Police Department, the prosecutor's office, and a number, dozens of community agencies about how we can try to reach our young people best. As you may have caught, in November, there was an election for the prosecutor in Jackson County. We did give her time to make sure she could get through re-election for a little while. We've also taken some time here at the end of the year to make sure we're retooling the necessary programs, including being ready to work with our next federal administration in the Justice Department. We are likely to get a new United States Attorney, a new United States Attorney General, and we want to make sure that we have all of the steps ready to say, how can we work with you? How can we partner with you ahead? But as we start a new year and get out of the holiday season, expect us to have more community meetings. Some of them might be on Zoom and might be on some of these internet sources like Facebook Live, but we'll make sure that we get that work done along the way. And then when we talk about the reform project, what we're really talking about, and we've had a lot of time to work with this, is how do we address the root causes of violent crime? It's not good enough for us to just say, hey, here's a problem now, and we react. We need to be working ahead. That's why our program looks to prevention, so we're reaching young people from an early age, working on things like conflict resolution with the Kansas City schools, Hickman Mills, Grandview Schools Center, etc., but also making sure that we work on intervention. That's for some of those who've already been in a cycle of violence. How can we make sure that they see that there's a path out? How do we make sure that they know that retaliation isn't the answer, that settling scores on the streets is only bringing more harm and more carnage to those of us in Kansas City? Those are the sorts of things that we need, and that's what we're going to work for aggressively. And then reform continues to be an important part for us. That includes reforming laws that have disproportionate impact and have put too many people in prison when we really need that space for those who are our most violent offenders. That includes not just our decriminalization of marijuana efforts here in Kansas City proper, something of which I'm proud, but looking to expand that statewide, looking to make sure that we also decriminalize poverty. Things like parking tickets can be tickets, civil violations. We're not saying we're getting rid of the duty to pay parking tickets. Indeed, I paid a $40 parking ticket just the other day. What we're doing instead is saying that rather than going to jail, you'll have to make sure that you get that fine paid. You'll have to make sure that you don't have it to become an assessment on your taxes or any other number of areas. From Holden, what are future plans from police reforms since next to nothing has changed since the summer protests? Well, a few things have changed. First, we have referred officer-involved shootings to an outside agency, and that was a requirement, one that I pushed, and that the Board of Police Commissioners agreed on. We also are creating a more conservative policy to the use of certain tools, military-style weapons, like tear gas. You don't need to tear gas peaceful crowds. We recognize that, and we're working with the department right now to see how those ways can be reformed. I've also issued a series and proposed a series of complaints from the Board of Police Commissioners. And as a reminder, unlike some cities that you might think, the mayor doesn't uniquely run the Board of Police Commissioners. I'm one of 5 votes. 4 of the 5 votes on the police commissioners are appointed by Governor Mike Parson of Missouri. And we continue to work with that board to try to see what change we can make. One of the changes that I think just makes perfect sense is in the Office of Community Complaints, the place where someone like you, Holden, or anyone else can say, I have a concern. Well, what can we do to make it easier? Abolishing the notary requirement is one step. It's already hard enough to build up the energy and the confidence to file a complaint. We need to make sure we're not throwing up unnecessary barriers to doing so. Getting rid of the age requirement for Office of Community Complaints that are filed. Why is it that someone who's 16 is less valid? They can be a witness in a trial, they can be a defendant in a criminal case, they can be a victim, and too often they are. We need to make sure that they're respected in their voice in all situations, including when filing complaints. And extending the amount of time to file a complaint from 30 days to something much longer. While I understand we don't want complaints that are filed 10 years after an incident, having them too short, as many of us have seen, particularly those of us who've ever worked with sexual assault victims or victims of any level of harassment, you know that sometimes it's hard to get up the energy to talk. Sometimes it's hard to be confident that your story will be listened to. We need to make sure that we're listening, whether it's day 1 or day 35. And that's one of the important changes that I think we know. From David, there's a lot of gunfire around Midtown town. I don't report shots to the police unless they're close by because I cannot specify a location and I'm just clogging up 911. If the city created a website to report gunfire, then the aggregate data might be useful in finding patterns without overwhelming 911. The site would contain things like time, location of the reporter, perceived direction of the shots, a rough estimate of their distance, and the number of shots. David, that's a wonderful idea. In certain neighborhoods of Kansas City, particularly along the Prospect Max line and in northeast Kansas City, we have a system by the name of ShotSpotter. Unfortunately, that isn't around enough of the city. And further, unfortunately, we've seen this year that there isn't just one area, there isn't one corridor, there isn't one stretch that's been impacted by shootings in Kansas City. I think that is a wonderful idea in terms of how we're tracking the shootings that we have. We have introduced through the Board of Police Commissioners and then to the police department itself a weekly shooting review, but that only applies to those who are hit by gunfire. We need to do more to make sure that we are tracking that, and that's something that I'll take to the 4 other police commissioners, and that's something that I would like to see done. So David, thank you for that, and I'm sorry for that ongoing concern that you've had in your neighborhood. From Bill, gunfire is our neighborhood curse. Occurrences need to be presented as searchable information to the neighborhood association, with information such as the results of the investigation by responding officers, known factors, for example, how many shots, whether from a moving vehicle, rifle or handgun, shell casings found, etc., and injuries reported. The perception of safety will improve and we can get a handle on repeat offenders. ShotSpotter will do the triangulation neighborhoods need that data. I'm sure will indicate the need to get guns off the streets. Well, I agree wholeheartedly that we need to get guns off the streets in Kansas City. We've got a very significant problem, and it's something for which we need significant solutions. There is something that I proposed and that we got passed some months ago and where we need to do better, which is that we introduced and City Council passed a dashboard program with the police department where you'd be able to see things like where shots were fired, how the response is going, looking up more information. Although much of that is available through different internet sites and third-party vendors, it does not work. And I will say that wholeheartedly. As a Kansas City resident, when I'm looking to see what's gone down recently along where I live on Paseo, I can't find it efficiently. And that's going to the Kansas City Police Department website. It's not enough to say it's out there. What we need to do is make sure it's clear, it's accessible, that there is interface, and that you can all add information, such as David and Bill have already discussed. From Carlos, he asks, with homicides happening left and right, why are you so worried about the illegal street racing? If only catching murderers was lucrative, then we would see a change. I personally would love to see kids do this rather than getting into worse situations. Rather than retaliation, why not give them a place where they can do this safely? A few things. I've said it 1,000 times and I'll say it again. This is a city that can walk and chew gum. We need to make sure that we actually are addressing all the crimes that exist in Kansas City. We care a lot about murder. We pay attention to it. We pay a lot of money. We have a lot of detectives that work on it. We have a lot of work being done. What that doesn't mean is that we're just going to ignore illegal street racing. And illegal street racing and sideshow events, we had a mass shooting in Slope Park this summer. At another street racing event and a display, we had a murder in Southwest Boulevard. As somebody who actually saw that video and who saw a young woman whose life was cut short, she's probably 19 or 20 years old, at one of these events, yeah, just letting them go unchecked isn't acceptable to me. So here's the deal. We're going to make sure that we address all of them. We're going to make sure that we're a city that's safe. We're a city where people aren't going to be the next manslaughter victim because a Dodge Charger spun out of control during some performance. We're going to make sure that somebody firing off an AR-15 in a crowd at one of these displays isn't just able to do these types of unsanctioned events with impunity. Here's the deal. We have to make sure we balance that. And I think we will. And that's what our proposal is about. So I'll note this as well, just an additional fact. In May, I've already forgot this statistic, almost forgot this statistic. 7 people were shot at these types of performances. We're going to work to make sure there are places where kids can be. We've done that before. We have the loop in Slope Park that was actually put there by my 3 times on predecessor, Manuel Cleveland. But we also have to make sure that we're doing things the right way and protecting people. So that's how I would address that. But yes, murders are a significant challenge. It's a thing that keeps me up every night and every day. And I give my condolences to a new victim who actually lived probably only about 2 miles from me off of about 18th and Benton, who died last night. It's something we work on constantly. And it's why, fundamentally, everyone in one of these organizations needs to talk about change. We need to talk about how we can do better. And it's on all of us. Not you, all of us, me, the police, the prosecutors, etc. Because that's the sort of thing that I think makes Kansas City a harder place to live. From Tracy, what boards and commissions will be a priority for you in 2021? A few areas where we still need to appoint. We've appointed a lot of our economic development agencies. That will be ongoing, important work for us to do to make sure that we're fair with how we do things. I think we've heard loud and clear from the public a number of different times that you don't want unchecked incentives in certain parts of Kansas City. But we also need to make sure that we're doing things like getting money back out onto the streets in the Central City Economic Development Sales Tax area. We need to make sure that we're being responsible with CIDs, Community Improvement Districts, in every part of the city, particularly those of you in South Kansas City, the Warnell Corridor, etc., who have told us time and again, we don't just want these things approved without real benefit to their community. And so that's the sort of thing that we need to make sure we're doing more work on. Those are some of the boards I'll be looking to. We also have some boards that work on fairness in how we give out city contracts, fairness in how we make sure that things are equitable in terms of how city business is done. I will continue to make sure that we have a great deal of effort and work there. All right. From Dawn. Mayor Q, my neighborhood in the 64155 zip code, we the North, would like North Oak Traffic Way repaved between Highway 152 and Berry Road and a stoplight at 88th and North Oak Traffic Way. We were promised a stoplight 18 years ago, but nothing has happened. We would also like sidewalks in our old established neighborhood. We've agreed to hire taxes to take care of these issues, but it hasn't happened. A few things that we can and should do. The first of which is make sure you email me at mayorq@kcmo.org. That's mayorq@kcmo.org. I would be delighted to try to see that we can get this done. I actually was up at, I started over at about Plant Purchase in 152 the other day and was spending some time kind of walking and driving around the Northland, and so went down North Oak and saw the very situation that you're talking about. We did, I think, a several $1 million improvement to North Oak Traffic Way in the southern stretch of it in the Northland a few years ago, roughly maybe 2 or 3. We need to make sure that on the other side of things, we have that same improvement because it is a significant challenge for all of you. Okay? All right. Now let's go to the tape. We go to the comments for everything that you've all said. I'm going to try to start to the top. Some of you have been nice, some of you have been naughty, but that's okay. Gunfire website is a great idea. Actually, and I hope my staff is watching. Every now and then, I think maybe one or two of them does, because they're busy and have lives and families and such. I got all of y'all, and you are my family. But nevertheless, I hope that we do follow up on this website. We've actually already kind of proposed it and introduced it, but I think it will be very important. The interaction that I know our questioners before were asking about could be key. All right. Daryl Phillips says, how about a skilled or trade center for those who come out of prison and all those who are not in prison that want to learn a trade free? So our Full Employment Council does elements of that, and the FEC is down at 18th and Paseo. But we need to make sure that we are always doing better and more. We work with the FEC extensively for those who are returning citizens to our community. And, you know, some people kind of give me trouble sometimes. They say, Lucas, why are you doing all of the pardons for past drug offenses? Why are you trying to make these things different? Well, because it's hard for a lot of these people to get jobs. It's hard to get jobs if you have these things that are following you around like a scarlet letter. Right? These are the sorts of things that I think are important for us. And I'll tell you what, because some of you in the comments, pretend, I think, to be defenders of the police. But let me tell you something that my actual conversations with the police have been. And I talk to a lot of them every week. You know, and I was talking to an officer who said, the biggest and the best thing we could do is make sure that people find opportunities, that they get jobs, that they're able to find some future. It's not more guns, it's not more battles, not more wars, not more equipment. It's making sure people have something to look forward to in life, that they have some hope, that they have a second chance. That's the work that we're going to make sure we're doing for all of you. Thank you for helping clean up Ozark and Raytown Road. It has been essential. Those of you in East Kansas City, particularly East Kansas City on the other side of 435 or near 435, have been dealing with such significant challenges for a long time in terms of making sure you get adequate city services. We've heard you. I know those neighborhoods well. I have a sister who lives out that way. We will make sure that we address those issues for you long term. All right. Speaking of shots, a major shout out to KCPD on their super fast response last night to a shooting in my hood. Very good. See, thank you. Thank you for calling, by the way, and the others who did call. Thank you for our dispatchers. Thank you for our first responders, KCPD, Kansas City Fire, who do good work often with making sure they can respond quickly. Nothing's perfect. No one is perfect. No group is perfect. But all of us in the city, including my friends at Solid Wastes, are doing, and by the way, that's my whole hand, at the Solid Waste Services, they're all doing their jobs to the best of their ability to make sure they can address these issues. Question, is it possible to have a mental health professional accompany the officers on calls with the proper safety measures in place? Yes, it is. And I think that's something that we're continuing to explore too. In our next city budget, last city budget, we put in money particularly for social workers, other mental health workers. I think we will continue to try to see that push, certainly from the mayor and council side. I hope ultimately from even more folks along the way. All right. Democrats have ran all major cities here for decades. Okay. Actually, we had a Republican mayor whom I respect greatly, our longest serving mayor of recency, Mayor Dick Berkeley, from 1979 to 1991. I think really the thing about being mayor that's different, and people ask sometimes, there aren't Republican potholes or Democratic potholes. These are problems that we just have to solve each day. We got to make sure the solid waste gets picked up. We have to make sure that we keep the lights on. We got to make sure that our employees are satisfied. These are the sorts of things where, look, I come up with just answers, and we're working our hardest to find answers each day. Yeah, I vote in national elections too. We have our different views, I'm sure, but you know what? We don't need the partisanship on the local level, because here at the local level, we can actually get things done. I'm proud to be in Kansas City, not Washington, not Jefferson City, not Topeka. I'm proud of where we are, making sure that we do those important steps each and every day for all of you. All right. Pending the health situation, I muted my thing. Pending the health situation, is the current plan for Parks and Rec to reopen Tiffany Springs Water Park in 2021? Yes, I would love to. I would absolutely love to. So there you go. Sean Berkey. I'm sorry. I'm trying not to say last names. How come you're not out marching with the Black Panther Party right now in Kansas City? You're funny. Here's the deal. And we talk sometimes, and maybe one day I'll write a book or a really good blog post about all of this, but I'm proud of our city. We weathered a lot this year. Were there things we could have done better? Absolutely. I think about it every day. And don't worry, I know I have my critics on here. I'm probably my biggest critic daily. But, when I compare us to other American cities, when I saw the tragedies in Minneapolis, in Philadelphia, when I saw the days of protest, the cities that were burning, and when I see that Kansas City came out relatively better than most of those, that we have a chance to see what we can do better, that we have a chance to speak to each other, that I've been able to talk to police backers, to protesters, to others. I say I've done my darn job. I think that's important for us. I think it's important for us to make sure that we're reasonable. The amazing thing, and I don't see this necessarily in my comments on Facebook, but I think there are extremes in our country and in our city. And there are 10% of people that just say, no, oh my God, do this, abolish this, whatever. And there are 10% on the other side that say, never ask a single question, never try to do better. And I like talking to all of you directly, because I think there are 80% of us in between. There are 80% of us that want our neighborhoods to be safe. There are 80% of us who realize the police department's still going to be around. But there are 80% of us who also say, hey, how can we build better relations between our police department and our community? And it's those 80% of us that are going to make sure that this city is progressing in the future. Nina asks, how can I get involved on boards and commissions that are helpful for our community? We've got a website for that, but of course, I don't remember off the top of my head. What I would say is if you are interested in a board or commission, go to mayorq@kcmo.org or email me at that, or I will ask my staff if they could text me with that website before our time is done. Then I will make sure I share that with you, Nina. But you can also go that way. I think if I could Google really quickly, and I am a millennial, although an old balding one, I could probably find that special boards and commissions website, because we've done a lot of work, particularly here in Kansas City, to get more women involved with boards and commissions, to make sure that there are new people on our boards and commissions. Too often we are, I think, in a way, kind of disproportionate with how we do that. So I am on the United We website, and it leads you to a link for, I'm getting more information. So it looks like you'll go to kcmo.gov/mayor. So go to kcmo.gov/mayor and scroll down. You'll see several kind of odd pictures of me, and then trust me, keep scrolling. And I think you will be able to see a drop-down link there that says, I want to be on a board, or I'm not finding it. united-we.org/appointments-project. So go that way, or email us, mayorq@kcmo.org, and we'll make sure next time to get it on there, okay? All right, let's see. What effect does the $26 million budget cut to the KCPD have on our community? Yeah, there's one place where I had a little bit of difference of how the press reported things and how some people wrote things. There has not been a $26 million budget cut to the Kansas City Police Department. The city's budget is actually released, our proposed budget, mayor and manager's proposed budget, so I'll be back in front of you before then, is released in mid-February, and so that just has not happened yet. So we are continuing to try to find ways we can have cost savings. We recognize that the city needs to save about $70 million. The police budget is about 40% of our general fund discretionary dollars. And so that's why you've heard that discussion. But we're going to try to do all we can to make sure the city can stay as safe as possible. Elizabeth asks, are we going to be closing down like New York City again? I sure hope not, right? I'm proud. Look, maybe you weren't here at the top of the show. Kansas City's 2-week case infection rate is down by 14% because you all are doing good work. You're being responsible, right? We're all being responsible. We're wearing masks. We're doing social distancing. We're handling this very tough challenge. But I say this to people all the time who say, Mayor Q, oh my God, I want to be able to sit in the bar until 2:45 a.m. God bless you. But, I say our modest restrictions right now Help us avoid the California statewide style shutdown, the New York City shutdown, St. Louis County's ban on indoor dining and indoor drinking at all hours. St. Louis County, by the way, just the other edge of Missouri, right? So these are the sorts of things that we're trying to make sure we work on. Nate asks, so why not at the protest? I don't know what protest, Nate. I get that you have an agenda to push. We're here to actually solve things possibly for the future of Kansas City. And I have absolutely no shame in talking with any citizen in Kansas City. You know, something I'm really proud of as mayor is that I go anywhere in the city. You know, in the month of July, month of June, I was in rooms of all law enforcement spouses, and I was in room of all activists and all protesters. And it's my job as mayor to bring us together. And we will keep working to do that, understanding that there are differences that we'll have, but we'll make sure that we do that along the way. Someone who's asking the opposite of some of you who want me to open it up, even though the city is open, Fabio asks, Mr. Mayor, why don't you shut the city down? There's balance. There's balance in what we do. As I say all the time, we don't want the medicine to be more extensive than necessary. And so we want to make sure that we have a responsible, balanced approach. I don't know a community in America that has done a more balanced approach than Kansas City. We don't just read tea leaves, but we also don't just bury our heads in the sand. We've been able, particularly compared to cities our size, to have fewer deaths in places like New Orleans and the whole New Orleans metro. Fewer deaths than what you've seen in places like Detroit and the Detroit metro, other areas in Middle America. I'm proud of that, and those are the reasons that we're taking these types of steps. You know, this is a good question because I've seen it. By the way, Robert, my favorite housing provider, you're absolutely right. Somebody was like, you're Quentin Lucas's biggest critic. I'm like, no, it's Brian. Everybody knows. And Brian, if you're watching, it's good to see you, my brother. Happy holidays. Although you probably want me to just say Merry Christmas. So Merry Christmas to you. Tony asks, can you address a quick trip being proposed at 39th and Southwest Trafficway, one of the busiest intersections in the city? It must be stopped. That intersection can't handle it, nor can the block. Please represent these neighborhoods and hear their voices. I have become familiar with the quick trip issue. I have not received any application yet from all of them, but I understand that it is in the proposal, or it is in the proposal stage. I agree with you. Before we're actually building another quick trip, tying up more traffic, particularly on the traffic way, which itself, we've seen fatalities, we've seen other challenges. They need to do a lot of work. And I agree that the quick trip over on Westport Road is pretty darn close to the proposed quick trip at 39th and Southwest Trafficway. That's like a minute and a half drive away. I don't get it right now. I'll do my due diligence, make sure I read about it and all of that. But you know, usually in those sorts of situations, I like to stick with the neighborhood folks. And so I hear you. Your objections have been heard by all of us. And right now, I'm not getting it. But I will make sure that I listen to you all. Keep emailing me, by the way. Keep calling as we hear more about this along the way. Okay? All right. Thank you, Tony. Good question. Yes, what are you doing up in the Northland? I'm the mayor of all of Kansas City. I love the Northland. I love South Kansas City. I love East Kansas City. I love you downtown, Midtown, Martin City, Old Harlem neighborhood, right? That's what we're all about. How soon can we get Patrick Mahomes the vaccine? Oh, man, yeah, that is true. That is true. We got to protect Patrick Mahomes. Big game against the Saints tomorrow, by the way. The Chiefs, my prediction, they will win. Question, will they cover the spread? There's been a big question a lot lately, but nevertheless, no, I've been proud of the Chiefs, probably a bright spot in 2020. You know, somebody also asked, what are your priorities for 2021 beyond the pandemic? That's right, and I think a number of things. Violent crime needs to be one of our top issues in terms of how we're going to address our issues long term. In addition to violent crime issues, we need to make sure that we are looking at how we can be more, I think, equitable in development in Kansas City long term. How do we help rebuild aging communities of Kansas City? And that's not just the inner city. That is increasingly southern Clay County. That is South Kansas City, the Ruskin Heights neighborhood, the Hickman Mills area. Those are the sorts of things that we need to continue to make sure we're working on. And so those will be huge priorities for me in 2021. Somebody also asked about my relationship with the Hickman Mills School District. I actually visited virtually Truman Elementary in the Hickman Middle School District just the other day. We work with them a lot. It is vital that we make sure that those kids, that community, have that same wonderful opportunity that we make in other areas of Kansas City. And so I work with all of our school districts. I'm probably the only mayor or councilman who's had the fortune of visiting individually, and back when we could visit with people, with every superintendent in Kansas City. That's 14 school districts. We'll keep doing that. I visit with the private and the parochial schools too, like my friends at Zion. And so we will continue to make sure we do that as time goes on. Is it possible restaurants will be going back to go only for a short period of time? Is this true? Right now, that's not the plan, but we'll continue to monitor the situation. Like I've told a bunch of people, I don't want to close anything down, but we will make sure that we do all we can to keep people safe, to keep people alive. Right now, with case numbers dropping, we're doing good work here in Kansas City, but we need to make sure we do that, and that's all of you working with me to make sure we get her done. All right. Okay, there are a few other things you want me to fire people. Mr. Mayor, what about the Hickman Middle School District? We answered that. How do you plan to deal with people who refuse to mask up? How are you dealing with businesses who refuse to enforce masking? When will we no longer have to wear masks? All right, starting with the last part first. Dr. Rex Archer, our health director, noted the other day that we will probably have a mask mandate around for some time. We will continue to measure it, but I continue to believe in the fact that the mask mandate has really allowed us to stay open. It's allowed us to go back to doing a lot of things. This is the sort of thing that we need to work on, and that's what I will continue to believe in. In terms of, I lost the question. I'm sorry. Oh, here we go. How are you dealing with businesses who refuse to enforce masking? We continue to send out the health department and our regulated industries division to make sure that where there are complaints, then they're met. If you have complaints, you can call 311 or email COVID, COVID, violations at kcmo.org. COVID violations at kcmo.org. And so I think with that, because I will be going to an event brief in just a second over at 17th and Paseo, the Greg Kleist Community Center. Our Parks Department is helping provide gifts to the needy. I'll be there in a short minute. I'll be wearing my Parks mask. I'll be socially distanced, and I hope all of you are as well. Let me tell you a little something, though, real quick. As you may or may not know, Christmas is my favorite holiday. And growing up, we didn't have particularly exciting Christmases, but one thing about me is that I wake up really, really, really early. Really early. Always have. Terrorizing my poor mother. And I remember we lived in an apartment. This was probably when I was 6, 7 years old. And I was horrified because I was like, Mom, we don't have a chimney because we're in an apartment. How will Santa get in? And she said, well, I'll leave the door unlocked for Santa. It's like, do you promise? And she did, and made sure that no matter what our differences were, even if we weren't in a big fancy house or anything like that, there weren't a bunch of gifts, I knew that Santa was coming to come spread cheer for all of us. No matter what your situation is this Christmas, I hope that you share that cheer with your family, with your friends, your neighbors, to somebody who's in need. And I say Merry Christmas to those of you who are celebrating. God bless you. I am so lucky to be mayor of this city, and we'll probably talk again here real soon. Thanks for listening, everybody. Stay safe, wear a mask, and we'll see you next time. And, oh yes, ho, ho, ho.